Are you the moderator? Are you the speaker? Or are you the speaker? You're the moderator. So,
Okay, so you okay, so JJ, you sit in this chair, JJ. So you get to say this for my husband. Yeah, okay.
oh, I should not sit all the way back. Feet were like. We'll go ahead and get started while Kelly is.
Thank you, Kelly.
While Kelly is coming, and so thank y'all for being here. And today we do have a panel for you. And so, no, you're good. And so we have JJ Castillo. He is, what year did you graduate?
In 2022.
Yeah, he graduated in 2022. And he now works at Cintas. And then we also have Sam Green. And she is married with one kid, correct? One kid. And she works at the Office of Career and Professional Development. And we have Amber Black and her husband, Kelly. Amber Black is a assistant vice president in student affairs. And y'all have two boys, right? But they're both either in college or out of college. And Kelly, I'm not sure where you work. Amarillo. And so anyways, so this is a panel, and so y'all are going to ask questions. If you are virtual on Teams, feel free to ask questions in the chat. And so now we're going to open it up. But first off, I'm going to kind of let y'all start out. I'll let Jamie start out. Just kind of tell us your kind of your background and what you do for sure. And then also maybe one thing that you would tell your younger self to do, like when you're in college, what would you have done differently when you're in college from what you know now?
Hi everyone, my name is JJ Castillo. I'm an alumni of West Texas A&M University. Graduated in May of 2022 got my BBA in business management. And right after graduation, I started with a company called Cintas, and I'm still currently with them today. And I'm currently a new business sales rep for them right now. And one thing I would have told my younger self when starting college is apply for scholarships a lot earlier, and with local scholarships starting my freshman year. And definitely getting more involved with leadership positions early on to build a more I guess, appealing resume as well when submitting those applications.
Okay, my name is Sam Green. I am, like she said, I'm in career and professional development. I'm the associate director over there. And yes, so gosh, for advice, I feel like I would probably tell my younger self to use resources that are on campus. And that might be kind of a shameless plug because I'm one of those resources now. But I think about Buff Smart, and I think about career and professional development, student engagement and leadership, and kind of like JJ said, just those resources there to help you develop your resume and kind of make you a more marketable and valuable candidate in the workforce, I think is so important. So that would probably be my advice for younger Sam.
I'm Amber Black. I work as an assistant vice president in student affairs, and I graduated with an undergraduate degree in marketing and a master's in business administration. If I could have a do-over from my undergraduate college, I would have done an internship. I was really busy working, and so I kept thinking, like, who has time to get an internship? And that seemed like something that would be like a limited amount of time, and then like, what would I do after that? And I had bills to pay. But looking back, that would have been a really good way for me to move out of the industry that I was in at the time, which was ultimately my goal.
I'm Kelly Black. I own an anesthesia business in Amarillo. Graduated from WT a long time ago. As well, I got my master's from TCU. And I guess the advice I would say is shadow as many jobs as you possibly can and figure out what you want to do.
Great. Do y'all have any questions yet for them?
Yeah, we got one. When you say look for local scholarships, is it you just gotta go to the web and look up for?
Well, for one, I know being a past peer financial coach, I definitely would have booked a session with one of them, Guy or Amaya. But searching online, Amarillo, and definitely I know what helped me throughout my collegiate career was the Amarillo Area Foundation and Opportunity Plan. I got 2 scholarships, one from each, and so that was both those helped me quite a bit.
We could vouch for the opportunity plan as well. Like it helped us a lot.
Yeah, and you can book an appointment with us to learn all about scholarships. All right, so for the married couple, do you merge your accounts or keep them separate, and why?
We've been a team for many decades and we just merge everything.
Our faith is important to us. I think it's really hard to be like united in all things except your money. There's some sort of like distrust if you're like, hey, we're each going to do our own thing. And so I would tell you that for us, I have a friend who never merged her accounts because she always said these things to turn on a dime. Okay, but I think that's a horrible approach to marriage. So anyway, we're stuck. So anyway, so yeah, we merge ours.
Okay, I didn't know if I counted as a married couple. My husband is not here today, but okay, good. So we also, so very, very similar to them. Our faith is very important in our marriage and the decisions that we make. So we came together and everything, and that includes our finances. We know that there could be some potential risk, but we're in it for the long haul. So that's really good. And that was an important conversation that we had ahead of getting married.
Yes, question.
So did each of you wait until you got married to merge, or was it more of like once you got engaged, or closer to being engaged? At what point did you decide like the merge was necessary?
I don't know that there's a magical time. I think certainly after you get married, it's time to merge accounts for sure.
Yeah, same for us. We waited until after we were married. Prior to that, we still kind of had our individual selves. I was married into in our relationship, he has a kid and now I have a kid. And so there were big pieces and big parts of that puzzle that were at play. And so for us, it was after marriage as well.
So, so now we're gonna ask about kind of accountability. So in your relationship, how do you keep each other accountable? But then also JJ, you can also answer, how do you keep yourself accountable without being a partner?
I would say one thing or one habit that I kept when I graduated from WTA and as a peer financial coach was sticking to my every dollar budget app that I still currently use today. And there's a certain amount that I always do my best to stay under when I set that budget amount within my app. And also manually tracking my expenses also helps keep myself accountable of how much I'm spending on a monthly basis, and also to know going forward how much I should budget and a lot more going towards the future months as well.
I would say in our marriage, I mean, this is so cliche, but communication is so important in marriage. And so for us, like we are in our mid-30s, and we're not as with it as JJ. We do not have a tracking app outside of the A and B app, which we regularly keep up with. But for us, it's a lot about communication. And so, you know, if my husband loves to spend money and I'm a thrifty person. And so for him, it's checking in with me to say, hey, I want to purchase this leather for his leather business. Are you okay with me making this purchase? And so we have those pretty frequent conversations. So accountability is huge for us. If either of us intend to do a large purchase, we definitely check in.
Is there a dollar amount for the large purchase, or is it just large?
Just large. So large is very subjective, okay? Especially in our marriage. So to me, I would say, well, leather's expensive. Okay, so that was a hard example, but I don't know. I think so. Those conversations, they were definitely more frequent in the beginning of our marriage, and now we've kind of learned to trust each other's like we have a better understanding of what is, you know, kind of where each other's boundaries are. For me, I would say large is, you know, over. I don't know. I don't know if I can put a dollar amount on it. I think it depends too on that month, like I think it depends on, well, like just recently our water heater broke, our sewer line broke, our car broke down, we have a hospital bill. So like now checking in is a lot more appropriate and having those conversations is way more appropriate, especially when we have those other expenses.
So like early on, we had some really good advice, but like if you agree on things in advance, then you don't really have much to argue about. And that is, so we like to have some like monthly check-ins and like at least annually, like we'll sit down and sort of have our goals for the year. And this sounds really boring, I'm sorry, but like when you agree in advance and you're like, okay, these are our goals this year. This is what we would like to put in retirement. This is something that we really like to do. We want to take this trip or we want to do this thing. Then sort of like you have these predetermined decisions. And so then when one or both persons would like to deviate from that, I'd really love to have a Toyota Land Cruiser, and I can't talk Kelly into it. So that would be an example of like a big purchase, like that I'm not just going down to the Toyota dealership and getting that. Oh, it's really good. And so anyway, I think he'd love it, but that would be something I would love. But like we've sort of said, like, yeah, that's really expensive, and I'm not really sure that we want to have a car payment. And so it's things like that. But I think that I'm sort of like the person that spends a little all the time, and Kelly's the one that's sort of the big ticket guy, like he likes golf clubs and stuff. And so, but we usually discuss that. But I think we pre-decided some things, and so we sort of know where things stand in our budget. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, thanks. You get comfortable. I think who was the person that mentioned what's a big ticket item? That's you.
Mhm.
I think in the back of your mind, if you feel like this might be a little expensive, you should probably communicate that.
Yep. I like that advice. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, definitely communicate.
And then one more thing I'll piggyback off too, for myself is if you have goals that you want to achieve as well in the future and later on down the road, that kind of helps keep yourself accountable as well. Because if you're ever purchasing big ticket items or ever thinking about if you need something or want something, that's when you ask yourself, will this help me get closer towards my goal if I purchase this later on down the road? So that kind of helps me keep me accountable as well.
Can I just say something about JJ? You brought that up, and I think when you talk about having goals, like I remember early in our marriage, we had no money, so it was just like we were just trying to get to the end of the month, and so like it's like this idea of like having goals. It seems so like, what do you mean goals? Like I'm just trying to like make sure I have enough to eat this month, and so like I've been there, but like there's a point at which you have to say, okay, even if I'm just saving a little, or like I'm gonna have some healthy practices, because otherwise it really is easy. I call it like a poverty mindset, when you're just like always just trying to survive life. And so it's like, and I grew up in poverty. And so it's, for me, it's, I had to really think in terms of how do I want to be intentional with my money, as opposed to just trying to like survive this month. So I just want to say, like, it's hard to sometimes imagine that you would ever get to a place where you could have goals, because you're just like, listen, I made rent. Woo-hoo.
Right.
So
Okay, so, any other questions right now? Okay, so, how do you handle student loans or debt, as partners or JJ individually? How do y'all handle paying those back and get those paid off?
We try to get rid of debt as much as possible. We're completely debt free now, and
except our house.
well, yeah, and we don't really want to pay that off because our interest is super low. But student loans, get them paid off. Cars, get them paid off, because it really frees up what you can do, especially if you set up a 5 and 10 year plan, and that frees up a lot of cash every month when you don't have student loans, you don't have car payments. We recommend getting everything paid off as soon as possible.
We did the classes at our church, the Financial Peace University classes, and that was really helpful for us, because like we were college student for a lot of our marriage, right? Like one of us has been in school a lot of our marriage, and so there was a time when Kelly was getting out of school. And so like for a while, we just sort of like, made the minimum payment or whatever. And it was like, oh, this is going to take us a million years to pay this off. And so we really got serious about it. And we're like, okay, we are going to attack this with purpose. And so we were really intentional. So every dollar that we could throw at it, we did. It was a really satisfying thing when we finally got to, we never called it said we're debt free, but anyway, we can at least tell y'all, it's a very exciting moment.
Similar to us, we're doing well in terms of debt. We're kind of dwindling that down. Well, we're soon to have a little bit more debt as soon as they finish the sewer line, but it's fine. We're fine.
Yes.
But yeah, we definitely try to keep that as low as possible. There were some situations that happened prior to our marriage that allowed my husband to pay off a lot of things. Not normal circumstances, I'll say that, that have allowed him to pay off some significant bills, which has been really helpful because last year for a year he was unemployed. And so not having that debt underneath us was an incredible help. But now as we are both employed, I would just say as much as we can. So like getting the tax refund check coming in, any kind of extra bulk money that we get or money that we save at the end of the month, we're trying to knock out that debt just as quick as we can, because it frees up so much of that space for you to plan for other things.
And then for me, as a recent graduate, I think with anything, it's nice and better to pay off anything as quickly as you can. But once you get that big boy job, big girl job after graduation, and you start getting your bigger paychecks, you want to set your student loans on automatic payments. That way it's withdrawing automatically and you don't have to worry about it. And secondly, it's something you don't miss, some money that you don't miss from the very beginning, since you set that habit early on rather than later in paying off your student loans. And so those are two things I started off quickly with right after graduation.
Do y'all save together or have separate savings for personal goals? I'm guessing this is for the difference.
We save together.
Y'all save together?
We save together as well. I'll try like a little bit more on that one. At the end of the month, anytime we have money left over, we immediately sweep that into savings to build that cushion back up. Like I said, it was a huge help last year with kind of all that we went through. But yeah, any little bit that you can put back is so important.
So Sam, I may make you uncomfortable here, but you said your husband was out of work for a year, right? So can you explain like that process and how you got through it with one income?
So just full transparency and full vulnerability here. Before our marriage, my husband was married to another woman and she passed away from cancer. So there was life insurance that was involved there. And so lots of things where he was able to pay off, specifically the house, cars, all of that, which allowed us to be in a space when we went through that time of his unemployment where we were pretty well set up because we both came together with a pretty large savings. So coming together, we had a nice position. I was not making a salary that was anything to write home about. Sorry. I'm sorry. Don't fire me.
It's not. She's worth so much more. Okay. We can pay her what she was worth. Okay.
I've since gotten hard. I know. It comes with the territory. It really does. And I've since gotten a promotion, so I'm very thankful for it. So every month we weren't breaking even. We were dipping into that savings a little bit more each month. But I would say the thing that helped us along the way was that my husband never sat on his hands. So like, he's not here to say anything. So I don't want you to get an idea that he's lazy or a bum or anything like that. He was not sitting on his hands waiting around. Just certain things didn't allow us to kind of move as quickly. And he has a career coach for a wife. So I was like, what's wrong with me? I have big questions. But he has that leather business. So he kind of picked up the speed there. He was selling things. He was doing some contract work. He was putting in the effort wherever he could. So I think those were things that were really helpful to help us supplement a little bit of that income. But also it's making really wise decisions about, what are we going to purchase? Does this need to be a priority right now? Or is this something that can wait? And so we had to put off a lot of the fun stuff and, put off travel, put off, extra gifts or going out to eat so much. And so thinking really wisely about how we were or where we were putting our money towards. And childcare, that stuff's expensive, and food, it's expensive. And so we were dipping into that savings a little bit each month, but trying to find ways to supplement it where we could.
So I'll just put a plug in. That's the reason why you have an emergency fund. And so I know at BusSmart, we preach that a lot to have an emergency fund. And I know college students are like, I barely get by. But if you can just put a little bit in that emergency fund to have it even in college. And then once you do have your full-time job, just try to build that up 3 to 6 months of expensive stuff, because that really does come in handy. Life experience always have that. It helps a lot. And it's so much easier of an emergency, like the emergency is so much easier to handle when you have that emergency fund there, because it becomes more of an inconvenience instead of having to put it on your credit card or that kind of thing and have to pay it back with interest. And yes, there are times an emergency may go over what you have in your emergency fund. You may have to go into debt, but at least you had a little bit to pay down towards that, and you don't have as much to pay back.
Kelly, Kelly works at a surgery center, providing anesthesia, and when COVID happened, it was like one day he was working and the next day they canceled all the cases. And Kelly has his own business, and so he's a contract employee at the surgery center. And so it was, anyway, we just would like to attest to the fact that it's really good to have an emergency fund, because it was, you just think there's never going to be a time where he won't work, right? I mean, it just seemed like that was a given, and then all of a sudden it was like no cases here, and so it was hard times for a minute.
So EC BusSmart, we talked about fund money, and so always, to have fund money in your budget. So how do y'all establish your fund money, and do y'all split it between each other, or is it month by month, or how does that work for y'all?
Well, for me, it's just going off my Every Dollar app again, just allotting fund money each month, and each month can vary. If I know that I'm going on a trip or a vacation, I'll allot for that and budget for it for that month and save up for it for whatever trip or fun activity will be taking place that month.
I don't know if we have a fund money method, really. We definitely look at what's happening in our lives, like right now, sewer line, water heater, ER bill, right? So fund money is scarce, but so I don't know that I have a life-changing response to that one.
So if we have a trip that we have planned, we'll save for it. And so we will be intentional about putting money aside for that. Are you going to talk about Christmas, or can I go ahead and talk about that for a second? So I love to be generous at Christmas with our family and our kids. And so, but it was every year it was oh no, it's Christmas. And so it was just you know what I mean? It was I can't believe this happens every year on December 25th. So we have a thing now where we intentionally put money aside every month planning for Christmas that's coming, because it always comes on December 25th. And so that's been helpful. My first story with credit card debt was when I was a WT student. This is before they passed a lot of laws to protect college students, but we would just get all they'd be setting up out here at the JBK, and they would be offering you a credit card. And so I got one my very first semester, and I was going to use it only for emergencies. And so that looked like buying some Christmas gifts. And so I went into credit card debt buying Christmas gifts for the very first time. And so that has been helpful for us, but we do try to be intentional about having that money set aside.
Yeah, and having that money set aside, I'll just plug it. That's what I call a sinking fund. And if you just put a line in your budget, and that could be for like car maintenance or car registration fees or something that you know that you're gonna pay yearly, or like subscriptions that you pay yearly. You can put so much a month in it, and then when it comes time to pay it, you already have that there. So that's, Christmas is a big one. And so that's something y'all can start saving back money every month. And then you have that pile of cash for that Christmas. So.
There's a question.
So if you have leftover money, and I know this is subjective, but is it better to pay down debt or is it better to put that little into savings?
I'd vote pay off debt.
Depends on what the interest rate is on your debt.
That's good.
I mean, if you have 9% interest rate on your debt and a money market account's running you at 1.5%, 2%, go attack your debt. Get that high interest debt out of the equation as soon as possible. That's kind of what Amber and I have been living by for many, many years is, interest rate, what's the volume on the debt, what's the interest rate, and how can we pay that off really quick so we can put some more money in that, in the money market account.
I don't like owing people. So we talk about once a quarter on whether or not we should really attack the house. Like it's one of those that, but we refinanced our house when the interest rates were really low. And so it's like this wonderful thing at like 3% or something, and so.
The reason we don't pay off our mortgage is because we can go and put it in a mutual fund or, whatever fund you want to put it in or interest bearing account or something like that, that's going to gain anywhere from 6 to 12%. That's a heck of a lot better than paying off my house. That's the way we do.
I think it's just your own personal preference. Like Amber said, don't like owing anybody, but do the math and the interest higher in your savings account, then it makes sense for your savings. But also some people are like, I just want to pay it off so I don't owe anybody at all. So there's also that. Yeah. It depends on what your preference is. Okay, can y'all tell us about time you and your partner did not see eye to eye when a financial decision had to be made, and how did you resolve the issue?
We didn't get the Land Cruiser.
So not yet. Not yet.
No, yeah. And so last year we met with annually, we try to meet with the financial counselor. And she really wanted a certain vehicle.
A Land Cruiser.
And it was the greatest meeting of all time because he said, absolutely not. That's one of the dumbest investments you could ever think. And I just sat over there in the corner, nice and quiet, and just let him talk for 5 minutes.
And then I said, we need to find a new financial plan. No. So Kelly, tell them what you drive.
I drive a 2010 Toyota Tundra.
And how many miles does it have?
Well over 200,000.
But and he it's like a badge of honor for him. Like he just is so excited to drive that every day. And anyway.
I'll drive it till the wheels fall.
Yeah. So no, he's frugal like that. But I think that's also where you have to decide as a couple. Like one of the things we love is we love to travel and to have adventures. And so I've never been people that really wanted like the fanciest house or whatever. I really like a Land Cruiser only because I think it looks like James Bond. They're so cute. Anyway, I think I was real young in that. Anyway, but really we're not car people either. Like we don't have to have. That's not really important to us. And so I think for us, we'd like that to have the freedom to be able to do some things. And so I think, again, that's coming together. But your example about talking to somebody, I think is really helpful. Like there are so many things that we don't know that our parents didn't really talk to us about as far as like investing and saving for retirement. And so I think it's really helpful if you could find somebody to talk to. But I just want to acknowledge that it's awkward to make that call. It's like, hi, we need to know more about finances. And so if we could talk to you about some financy things, but it's like not even knowing the words that you want to even say at the time. And so We have a person that we really love and it's been real great. So anyway, Eddie Boyd, if anybody's looking for a recommendation. Eddie Boyd, awesome.
How much do honey riders used to charge?
So this guy's interesting because he actually makes money on the sale of products. So we've actually met with him a couple of times and he hasn't charged us a dime, but he has asked that whenever we are at the time, when he wants to manage our money in our retirement, he will sell us some products at that time and that's how he makes his money. So I guess you can only make money one way or the other, right? So I think there are other people that if they just do the advising, I think that they have different ways of charging, if that makes sense. And so, but I highly recommend that. Like, if you just don't know things, I think it's like finding someone, it would probably be worth the money to just talk to somebody to say, hey, this is what I'm hoping for my life or my financial future. What does this look like? I think even like if you have friends or friends that are older than you and you're like, hey, it looks like you have your life together. And that's not always the people you think, right? Because if they're driving a Land Cruiser, it's probably not them. Just kidding. But I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. Yeah, that was judgy. But anyway, but I'm saying it isn't always the person, but those people that seem to have peace about their finances and have some money to be generous and that sort of thing. I think if you could even get some advice and ask them who they talk to, that's kind of how we found our person. We talked to some people.
Yeah, it doesn't cost anything to reach out and talk to a bunch of people, you know, an investment firm, somebody you personally know, maybe somebody in your church, even a professor here at WT. I'd be glad to talk to you. As far as how much they charge, it's going to depend on if you want them to actively manage your fund or if it's going to be a passively managed fund. That can be a significant chunk of change, but you'll find all that out when you reach out and talk to a different.
I jokingly said before this panel started that I feel like I'm the cautionary tale, and I feel that way even more so as we have this conversation. Okay, so me and my husband are like 2.5 years into our marriage, and whenever we first started our relationship, I wanted to be the good, agreeable wife. Okay, and so I've since learned that can't always be the case. But whenever we first got married, he had started this job at a place, and there were mass layoffs that were happening. So like I saw the writing on the walls. I was like, this is not good. They're coming for your job. You need to start applying. Meanwhile, he's looking up these cars, looking up for a new Lexus. And at that time, we didn't have car debt. And so he's looking at new cars and it new to us, but used cars. So we purchased this Lexus, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I don't think this is wise coming into this potential shift in employment. And sure enough, he gets laid off. And at that point, he goes, "Oh my gosh, now we have this car payment. I think I need to sell the Lexus." And I was like, "Probably so." And at one point in the conversation, I was like, "Yeah, I never really felt good about that purchase." And he goes, "Why didn't you say that?" And I was like, "I don't know, because I'm just learning how to be a wife." And so since that particular instance, I've learned that communication really does matter. And I have a great husband. He's very open to those conversations. But that was one of those things where like that communication, they can't read your mind, right? So you need to be open to having those uncomfortable conversations of, here's where I see some issues potentially happening. And I wish I had had that conversation. And in the end, it worked out fine. But, it could have been a lot less messy at stake.
Definitely communication is key.
Okay, I got a couple. What was the biggest financial mistake you made and how did you recover? I'm getting like too personal.
I'll tell you about the Chevy Cavalier I bought in college. So I was driving a Chevrolet Camaro. It was really kind of cool. And the transmission went out. And so I was working at a car dealership and they convinced me that for a payment of $238 a month, I could have a Chevrolet Cavalier. Okay. I was so excited. It was brand new. So I did that and I bought it on what they called at the time. This was a General Motors product called the Smart Buy. Okay, so anyway, what that meant is for 36 months, I made these low monthly payments, and at the end of it, I had a huge balloon payment that was due. And at that point, then you can refinance and continue to pay. So I think that, so I brought that car into the marriage. He married me anyway, thank you. But anyway.
It was all about the balloon payment.
It was all about the balloon payment. Yeah. So like we drove that Chevrolet Cavalier forever and we paid on it and paid on it. Like there's no telling. I probably can have a Land Cruiser for what I paid for that Chevy Cavalier. But it was one of those like the mistake I made there. And I think a lot of people make this mistake is don't let a car dealer talk to you about your payment. That's really, you just tell them that that's your business, but what are they going to sell you the car for? And so be like, know your business and know how much you're actually paying for the car. And once you get finished paying for the car, how much are you actually going to pay for it?
That's a huge point I'm super glad you brought up. You're not the first person I've heard say something like that, because it's even with like Amazon or something. It's online purchases where you don't have to pay anything for 12 months. But like you really have to read the fine print, because at the end of those 12 months, they're going to charge you for all 12 months plus whatever interest. Yeah. Thank you.
So pay cash.
Yeah, you cash
Pay cash.
up front.
I think the story about the Lexus would probably be the thing I would reiterate here.
For me, I would say, I wouldn't really say financial mistake, but something that I probably could have done better was when I lived, I'm from Amarillo, and WT is only about 20-minute drive from where I used to live and commute from 3 years going to college, but I lived on campus my first year, which I don't regret any of the experience I got. I love living on campus. It was just way too expensive. But when I got the peer financial coach job and really looked at how much I was spending, I really saved thousands of dollars once I moved back home and started commuting from home to school instead of living on campus. But like I said, I don't regret all the experience. It was awesome, but definitely the amount of money I could have saved could have potentially saved me a lot of money. And I think the majority of my student loan debt right now is from my first year of living on campus that I'm paying off right now.
Well, on the flip side, what's the best financial investment you make, and how did you know it was the right move?
I think contributing to your retirement fund as early as possible is it's just great advice. You know, even if it's $30 a month, once you start getting traction, you look up in 10 years and you have this big chunk of change, and then you get compounding interest and it starts to really grow.
Snowballs.
Yeah. I mean, that does a lot for your psyche over the next 10 years as you're having, you know, raising your kiddos or a family or whatever. And then the next 10 years after that, it just really builds. And then it does something for you. It makes you feel pretty good and pretty proud of yourself, and solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, I would say similar. Yeah, that investment is really important. It is very helpful. It does give you some comfort to know that you have that cushion and that peace whenever that time comes.
And for me, kind of picking back off of that, when you get into a company you work with, definitely taking advantage of their matching contributions as well to the max. And so maximize matching out for whoever that is with, or whoever you go with. And then of course, investing, what I like to do is Roth as well. So I'll do my 401k and then I'll do a Roth as well and max that out. And you help yourself later down the road, since especially at y'all's age, time is on your side. And when you're able to contribute early enough, you help yourselves later on down the road.
I think who you choose to marry is really important. And I'm saying that because he's here, but it's really cool when you are in partnership with someone who's got goals like you and who wants to do some cool things, and whether that's building wealth or whether that's, I mean, that's not really our goal. I mean, we want to have a great family and we want to be able to be generous with our kids, and we don't want to have to eat cat food when we're old. Like, you know what I mean? There's just goals like that, right? But I think making sure that whoever you choose to be with is like goals and that they're interested in partnership like that. Kelly, Kelly finished nursing school, and then I came back to WT to finish my degree. So I told you we were in school a really long time. And so this would have been Well, anyway, one day he comes home from work. He was a nurse at the hospital. And he came home from work and he said, honey, I think I'd like to be a CRNA. And I was like, well, what do you have to do to do that? And he goes, well, I have to get a master's degree. And I was like, I am sick of being broke. And I was sick of being broke, but he had these dreams. And so anyway, that was one of the best financial moves we made, was education. I'm a huge fan of higher ed. Like, it helped us to get out of poverty. And, you know, just when you look at like the data on earning a degree and what that does for you. I mean, it's not just the degree by itself, but when you take the degree and you add marketable skills, and then, you know, when you really start putting that to work and you're aware of like, gosh, what's the market paying for certain things? And so he had some friends that he worked with that were doing the CRNA route. He was like, hey, they seem to be doing well. I'd like for us to have more as a family. So anyway, I like him, but he's also a go-getter. So it adds to it. So.
To kind of go off of the IRA and 401ks and all of that, did you work, just retirement funds, did you guys work with a financial advisor, or did you manage your investments on your
Both.
both?
Ours was, so we've got some like financially savvy people in our family. So it kind of goes back to what Kelly mentioned, like talking with people you know. So we've gotten help through loved ones.
Similar for me as well. My dad was actually very financially savvy, so I was fortunate with that to get me started.
Most corporate jobs, and JJ, you can speak to this. When I used to work in banking, I had a career in banking before I did this. Oftentimes, whoever does the 401k for your work, they will provide you with a person that might help you. And so like, there's like so I mean, it's on a limited basis, but the idea that you have to like go out and hire a whiz, I mean, a lot of times like, so at WT, we have options, but so we have like the state retirement. So like Sam and I will someday be rich on TRS. I'm just saying, right? Okay, so we have a TRS program. And so the state's investing that, and it's like a fixed annuity. Sorry, that's like, but anyway, it's going to be good at some point. But we also have the opportunity to invest more of our money by investing into like a Fidelity account. And so then they have like a person who will kind of give you some general advice, and then you can pay extra for the, you know, top tier. So, but that's something to look forward to if you think you're going to work in some sort of a corporate job. Like,
Yep, and I'll say, and just to touch on that too, within our kind of corporation, we have courses and videos for new employees that come on board that they can watch whenever they need to on their own time about finances or investing.
just say one other thing. The idea, one of the things is just putting some money away. Like this idea that there's some like magic formula and magic investment that's going to make you rich. It's really just about putting the money aside, and you know, then you can kind of decide on the risk that you want and how your rate of return and all of that. And I think I would get intimidated by all that, thinking that that was the magic, right? Like if I could just figure out that magic formula, but it's really putting your $20 in the account that's doing most of the work. So just putting some money aside, I think is so easy. Would you agree? I mean,
Yeah.
and I wish we would have started sooner. We were in school a long time, as you know, so we were just trying to, you know.
So,
Absolutely.
yes, sometimes you'll have stages of your life. You are trying to survive,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
But as long as you're working towards your goals and working to get better and that kind of thing, and do better, that's where you need to work towards. Okay, so when going into like a long-term relationship, and as far as financial questions, how do you bring them up in conversation when you are looking at that long-term relationship? That kind of thing. Or should you be talking about before marriage, or if you're thinking about marrying somebody, that kind of thing? What are some things that you should talk about?
Are you asking women for their credit score? What are you doing over there?
She's asking you that question.
Well, I think for myself, I would like to make sure I'm in a good financial situation before starting any long-term relationship. to be able to take on whatever may occur or throughout the duration of the relationship as well. But I think similar to also what Amber's preached about with having goals as well, if you have similar goals with someone that you're also in a relationship as well, then you're more likely to, I guess, positively correlate those goals into the relationship as well. And so that's just from a single perspective.
We know a couple here in town and in Amarillo that they're pretty serious and they both want to be debt free before they get married. Now, that's not everybody's situation, but they are very, very serious about that. It's very important to them that they want to be debt free before sharing the reins.
I was gonna say that debt was a big part of the conversation that we had. I think when I told him I had paid off my master's program, he proposed immediately. He was very happy to hear that. That was
Good investment.
Yeah, he was like, okay, we can do this thing. But yeah, that was a really big part of our conversation. We did not talk about, what are your spending habits? And honestly, I don't think it would have changed. I mean, I love him and I'm crazy about him. It wouldn't have changed anything. But I would have brought about more conversations like, what are your spending habits? Because he's a spender. I'm not. And I think that could have cropped up some really fruitful conversations in our courting season.
But I do think, like, let's say that the Land Cruiser was really important to me. It really isn't. I just think they're cute. Okay. And like to tease them about it. But like, if that was really important to me, I'd want to marry someone who was okay with that, right? Like if that was my financial goal was to be driving the coolest, newest car all the time, I would want someone who either would be okay with that, right? Because maybe that was my financial goal. Like that was my dream in life was to do that. But I think they say that like what's really sad about that, they say that fights about money, they say that people use ugly, ugly words and like they are the most detrimental to marriage. Like they are vicious, like when it comes to your money. And so they talk about like you really, like this is an important thing to discuss. This idea that like just live on love, like that's really fine until you have childcare and you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's you just don't really think through all the things that are going to come as a part of it. So, I mean, it needs to be somebody that you love a lot and that can, I think it's, like this is, you want to make sure that the person you're marrying doesn't have a gambling problem. Like, I can't imagine if that was my story, like it would be really frustrating if I was like, please stop gambling all of our money away. But anyway, we're both pretty risk averse. And so anyway, but like, or maybe that we both love to gamble and that we're fine because we think eventually we're going to make it back or something. I don't know, but those are the kinds of things that I think you'd want to work through. That would be a horrible surprise after you get married.
And I think, communication is the key on that. A lot of people don't have those conversations, but I do also think it's really good just to have those conversations, to know to make sure that you're on the same page and that you're going in the same direction. Because that will be a big deal once you do get married. You will want to be going in the same direction. And so having those goals together and working towards them as a team is a big thing. I don't think we talked about money before our marriage, but shortly after we kind of learned through financial peace and that kind of thing that we needed to. And we started having those conversations. And I will say, having those money conversations, being vulnerable with your partner about it, that kind of thing, really opens up those lines of communication and that kind of getting in and really helps out a marriage because you are working towards the same goal. But yeah, if you're starting to be serious with somebody, maybe it is to kind of to bring up some of those money conversations. And it may run them off, but if it did run them off, then they're probably not the right one, right? And so I wouldn't bring it up on the first date.
So good advice, Megan. Yeah.
All right. What other questions? Do y'all have questions?
What are your thoughts about a cream? Is that like a good thing or not?
We don't believe in it.
If we're honest though, like we didn't have anything. So like, I mean, this idea that we're going to protect, like,
$20.
people put money it feels like planning for the failure. And that would be heartbreaking. So
I would say same, exactly.
What was it?
A prenup? What do you think about prenups?
Prenups.
prenuptial agreement where you guard your money against your,
Oh, was it familiar?
okay.
I did hear Dave Ramsey once say that sometimes you get a prenup to protect your money from your spouse's family. Because that's when they start coming out. So that's one thing I've heard. I don't have experience with prenups, but I have heard that is the spouse's family kind of comes out and be like, well, we need money, or we need this money, or that kind of thing. And so sometimes that's a cause for a prenup. Question.
That is good. What an interesting question. I wish I had needed one.
I know, that too.
Yeah, me too.
Questions? So how did y'all decide on financial roles and who does the budget, and how do y'all sit down with the budget and decide those kind of things? Because I know one of y'all has to be a budgeter, one of y'all, the spender is the one.
I went into my marriage, my husband worked in a bank whenever we got married. And I was like, oh, for sure, it'll be the budgeter. And then I was like, very quickly, I was like, he is not the budgeter. Okay, we're both type B. Okay, we're both hot messes in a lot of ways. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, there's a lot of changes that are happening. There's a big need for us to really sit down and talk through these things. So I actually ended up kind of being the person who really dove into our finances and kind of took some action steps, even just getting a spreadsheet going to see if I could look at what are we making, what are we spending, what are we, like kind of crunching those numbers a little bit. But yeah, it really kind of went opposite of how I thought it was going to. My background's in theater. So I was like, surely I won't be the budgeter because I'm just, really little thing or whatever. But I ended up kind of taking that role.
She's the banker. But we do meet once a month and we look at the spreadsheet, figure out, okay, what's our big ticket items? What do we need to do here and there? And, but
I've used the same Excel spreadsheet for like 100 years, and I just save it with a new date every week. So it's not really as fancy as you think. Like, but it's like, how much money do we have, and what are our bills this month, and what days are they due, and then it's just like looking to make sure, and I think that's the other thing. So much can be automated that you really do have to pay attention, because you're like, okay, this is so true. So Canyon City Water, we have auto debited from our account, and we had a water bill one time that was like $800. Okay, anyway, we had a water leak. Anyway, we've since fixed that. Like Sam's, okay, but it's like we would have never. I mean, I'm just saying it would have just auto debited, right? So it's like, oh my, right? And so it's things like that you can kind of get on autopilot at certain times, but like the idea that like I control the budget is, I wouldn't ever make a big purchase without us having a conversation. So, and then we sort of meet quarterly to talk about what are we going to do as far as our retirement. And, I think it's, we had a pastor one time at church that talked about that couples should have a vision retreat. And I just am planting the seed so you guys can kind of think about this, because money is only one part of that. But like as a couple, like we have dreams. Like there are things we want to see and places we want to visit. There are ways that we want to be involved with our kids, and the Lord willing, some grandkids someday. And so the idea of like having a dream for your future and what you want, like money is only a part of that, but it's an important tool to make that happen. So like, when do you want to retire? And when do you, but like, unless you can actually like articulate that, there was a study done a long time ago about whether like people who have their goals written down actually are more successful. And so we've done that and made a list of them. And it's really cool. It's like on this piece of notebook paper. And so it's really cool to see us scratch those off to say, we want to accomplish this by a certain time. So anyway, I would just say like that vision retreat, I think is a really cool idea. If you, it doesn't sound very fun, but we do fun things while we do like, that's just like a part of the weekend when we go on a vision retreat. So, you know, it's not like, we don't just like hold hands and, you know, talk about our feelings the whole time. So anyway, yeah.
That vision retreat can be as simple, like your first marriage, don't have money. That could just be going on a trip or, you know,
Yes.
something like that, something that doesn't cost money.
Absolutely.
And so vision retreats are good to do. Also, just remember, it's not going to come naturally as far as budgeting with your spouse and that kind of thing. It's going to take some time for when you're first doing that, it's just to, or budgeting in general, even if you're doing it by yourself and you're first doing it, it's going to take some time to get to know your spouse, get to know what you're spending and that kind of thing. And so, you know, don't try it for the first week and totally blow it and then give up. Keep going with it. It gets better and better as you budget and as you start working with your partner and that kind of thing on budget. So stick with it. Don't get frustrated. All right. Any other questions?
Do you guys split debits 50/50 or based on percentage of the total income? Like if someone makes a higher salary, is it 50/50 all the time, or is it proportional to the income being made?
So you're saying the person that makes the most money gets to spend the most money?
Contributes more to like ongoing bills or like food.
Ours is all in one pot, so it,
Same.
yeah, so it all kind of goes to the same things.
And it doesn't feel like, I mean, it's our retirement and our savings and no, so right now I'm going to school and so I have like tuition payments or whatever, but like that's our investment. Like it's this, it doesn't, I think part of that too is like this idea, like I want his dreams to come true as much as mine, right? So it's this idea of like, I don't know, if it felt like it was like yours and mine, I think that could get tricky really hard. I think it would be hard on the relationship.
Yeah, well, and whenever my husband was unemployed, I remember I would have moments where I had to stop because I would think to myself, he would spend money and I would go, that's my money. Like that was, I didn't say that.
I was just like, ooh, I should know what I feel.
Yeah, no, and I would have to stop and go, oh my goodness, no, what we chose, what we decided was right for our marriage was that what I made was our money. And that's not right for everyone. And that, you know, that doesn't mean that's how you should go about your relationships. But whatever you choose, I would say just be prepared for all situations. You know, if your spouse makes less than you or more than you, and you've chosen to come together, you have to, you know, kind of keep that in mind.
That's a good question though.
How do you feel about that?
There's
I could take it or leave it.
Okay.
Because mostly we're both in grad school.
Uh-huh.
And I have the same job right now. But I also have some financial situations. They don't.
So it's almost 5 o'clock. So is there anything else that you really want to tell everybody that you might not have covered or anything?
I think from me, for y'all at y'all's age, is when paying off debt or when trying to get ahead and investing, work hard now, help yourselves in the future rather than later, so that you don't have to work as hard later on. And so working hard to invest more, working hard to pay off your debt, doing that now will pay off in the long run.
I would say have grace for yourselves. I'm listening to these two groups. I'm like, wow, they really have it together. Have grace for yourselves. It's a clunky process. And it's taking small steps. I don't think it's diving all in and getting it all right the first time, kind of like Megan said. But if you take the right steps and in the right direction, small steps in the right direction, that's a good thing. That's a win.
My papa died this year and he was in his 90s and he was one of the best men I knew. And one of the things, when he and my granny were early married, they didn't have much money. And he told my granny one time, he said, Barbara, You can have anything you want, you just can't have it all right now. And I think that's really good advice for all of us. And that's some of the mistakes that I made, like that Chevy Cavalier that I bought. It's like, I really wanted that car today, but I couldn't afford it, right? And like, if you look back, it was such a dumb financial decision because the transmission would have been a lot less expensive, right? But it was like, I had this, it seemed so easy, and it was only $238 a month for the rest of my life. But anyway, I think that wisdom of don't buy what you can't afford is, I mean, that is like, and it's so frustrating when you really want to be able to afford it. And I think about when we were young, married, the research now said that couples today acquire in 3 years what it took their parents 15 years to accumulate when they were young. Okay, so think about this. So like when we were young married, we would have these friends and they were living in a brand new house in the colonies and they were driving a Suburban, and we were like, how are they affording that? Like, we were really asking ourselves. And so I think it's really easy to get into this trap of like, I want what they have. And then you apply and they approve you for the credit card or they approve you for the Land Cruiser, right? And before you know it, you have all this debt, and then it's like you are a slave in your own house, and that is horrible. That's a miserable feeling. And so I would just say, that sounds so lame. I'm sorry. Go have some fun. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it truly is. It's not, I guess it's just not fun long term is what I have learned. Once you buy the thing you can't afford.
Can't really follow that up. I mean, that's pretty good.
All right.
Y'all are
so-
really smart for being here. Like, I wish I would have done this. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Kudos to you.
So, everybody, I think questions and everybody, give everybody a round of applause. And so, thank y'all for being here. Thank you all for being here as well, and anybody that's online. And so we really appreciate y'all coming. This was our last session of our series, and so thank y'all for coming. If y'all ever need anything, we are located over at Old Main. Y'all can come see us. If y'all have any money questions, come see us. Also, these three are on campus, and so I'm sure if you want to talk to one of them, they would be willing to, not these three, these two.
Us two.
I was like, Kelly?
Random on the side.
So they're on campus, so if you ever want to talk to them as well, I'm sure they would talk to y'all. And so, but thank y'all all for being here. We really appreciate it, and we will see y'all around. So that's all we have.
Thank you.
y'all.